Hot mic. Relay?
Yeah.
Great. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Paul Solomon. I'm the chair of the Criminal Justice Commission. Today is the September 25th meeting of the commission. Do we have anybody signed up for public comment today?
We don't have any public comment.
Right. Well, first, I'd like to welcome everybody online and to publicly thank the Siletz tribe for welcoming us today into their home and creating space for us to have this meeting and feeding us. It's already been a pretty amazing morning, and I feel a little bit of a need to rub it in for those commissioners who weren't able to make it. Yes, a really phenomenal meal this morning or this afternoon. So no public comment? Was that correct? Correct. Okay. Our first item on the agenda is.
Can we do attendance really
Oh,
quickly?
yes, roll call, please, sorry.
No problem. Chair Solomon,
Here.
Commissioner Auxier,
Here.
Commissioner Beach. Here. Vice Chair Bobette,
Here.
Commissioner Freeman,
Here.
and Commissioner McPherson. I see him there. We're gonna count you as here. He's finishing up.
Sorry, I was finishing up a call. I'm here. Thank you.
And Commissioner Norton. Here. Senator Przanski. And Representative Lewis. So we do have quorum.
All right. Our first item on the agenda is to hear from Commissioner Norton and her team to talk to us about the behavioral health programs.
Sure, before we do that, there's a couple of people who have arrived that I would like to introduce you to. First one is Lacey. Lacey, what's happening about herself? I'm Lacey. I'm the registered nurse supervisor that oversees our MAP program. And I work closely with the behavioral health department and medical. Great. And then Miranda, if you.
Miranda Williams, I'm the executive health director for the clinic, also a foot member.
I'm just gonna turn it over to Dee because Dee, I have all the faith in the world in Dee, so. She makes us look.
Turn her over right as she's got her mouth.
Absolutely.
I'm just gonna be talking about our program and. Yeah,
We have approximately 25 minutes.
so I was talking with Jesse yesterday, we talked to kind of talk about what we'd be talking about here today, and some of the things that we talked about is like, what works? What works, for our people, and what works, what we see works for people, who reach long-term, sobriety. And we talked about employment. We have a protege program and a work experience program, and we've had a lot of success with that when we have them come into early recovery and we can put them to work. Because a lot of times they don't, they have damage, wreckage in their past, they have a long criminal history, and they just don't have a purpose. And when we can put them to work, we find that it's successful. Danny is a prime example of that. He just stepped out, but, Danny didn't come, I don't believe he waxed. Our protege, yeah, did he wax? Okay, yeah, and so he, started waxing at the, farm. And, loves it there and he's successful. I wanted to say this right after he talked, but we didn't have enough time. But Danny is one of our outstanding clients. He's honest, he shows up and he does the work. When we have him in group, he's like the top, he always has a message of hope, experience and strength, and he's just a superstar. And I feel like part of his success is putting him to work. We have a protege program. And we've had 2 people come through our behavioral health protege program. They're both very successful. One of them was a mental health court participant. She was a client, she was a program client, she finished And then, she started work in the protege and then found a position, a long-term position in her field, in her area of choice, her career choice. And she's still here. She's still, still successful. I've seen her lead meetings. I've seen her be confident and, she, works in community health and she is a leader. And then, Raven Hatfield, who is another, can I say finance name?
On the record, unless you have their permission, yeah.
I'll just say we had another program, client who was a protege and, was very successful. Started off working, in the TLC, and then, they have found a successful long-term position as well. They are still killing it. They are a superstar in the community. And in fact, we just honored them at our community dinner last Tuesday. I was talking, that's where we honored Jesse too. We honored clients. And I think we had about 22 that we honored. Out of that, we always honor once a year, and then we always honor a champion, a recovery champion. And this person was the recovery champion, and so very successful. And so I just want to say that when we can put people to work, they find long-term sustainable recovery. Another thing,
Can I say something? Can I say something about the our honoring ceremony? Is like once a year we have an honoring ceremony where it's like we bring the people that have gotten out of treatment that are living in our transitional living houses. We bring them in front of the community and we drum and we feed them and we honor them. And a lot of the community comes and it's really powerful. Like we've had clients come in and they just kind of feel weird because this is a small community. You use drugs in this community, you commit crimes in this community, and you have a stigma. And then you just don't feel good. And then you come back and then you're around all these people. And I had a client at the last one say, man, there was these people there that I seen, and the last time I seen them, they were really mad at me because I did something. And he's like, they came up, they gave me a hug, they told me congratulations. He's like, now I feel like I could just walk around with my head held high, and these people are proud of me, and I'm not ashamed of myself anymore. And I just think that's like a really, really powerful thing that we do. It really helps people with their self-confidence, and it's just like they're getting seen in a positive way. And the WEX program that he's talking about is the work experience program. It's where we will find job placements that will work with the tribe, and then we pay part of their wage, or SSPP is part of their wage, the tribal self-sufficiency program. And that's huge. It's huge for people to find purpose and find something they want to do. And I was talking to the judge the other day and I was like, man, if the county could do something like that, just give these people, because there are a lot of people, they come into the program and they're broken and they don't know. Like me, I was 38 years old and I really didn't have any work experience. It's like, man, so it's kind of a hopeless building, and just giving these people some hope and some purpose. They're in the chains things.
I'm in the transitional living center. We say TLC all the time and forget that people don't always know what that means. Tender living care. No, it's transitional living center. But
Wait,
it's
not the music group?
Yeah, no. And that part is really critical for people, right? Like, so you can go to treatment for 90 days. We're lucky we can get you a 90-day program, and then you get out, and then what's that gonna look like for you? Transitional living center, I think, is a key component to long-term recovery, is having that stability, long-term accountability built into it, and having that community and, just being in, I guess, just consistent, like, supportive housing is what I've seen for my clients, most successful. When I say successful, I mean that are still clean and sober or still working and have met all their goals and are still working on their goals, are people that have lived in sober living for an extended period of time. There's something to be said about that. It's like that critical piece, like without that, we haven't had a lot of great results.
I think another thing that we talked about, that's all good stuff. Thank you for that. Another thing we talked about is the cultural connection. When people come to the program, they come in early recovery or, to change their lives. A lot of times people don't have that connection to the tribe and to the culture. I know I didn't. And I wasn't raised around here and I didn't know that it was missing from me until I got clean in this community. I worked the program, our program saved my life and, so I was able to complete the program and then start working in the community, right? And then I started going to ceremonies. I started being a part of the community, going to talking circles, just being able to work in the community and then being able to participate in ceremony and culture was exactly what I was missing. And it was, I feel like, the missing piece. And I feel like that connection, when people, when they come to our program and they find that connection, it works. It is the missing piece and they can find sustainability. And do you want to say anything about
I
that?
mean, yeah, you know, they say the opposite of addiction is connection. Like, coming back, being a part of their culture, and part of the community. Sissy had a success story. We had a tribal member that had never been around here. She had family around here, but she'd never even really been to Sleds. And Sissy found her and was like reaching out to her.
Relentless.
I think she so she ends up like tracking her down and gets her into treatment. And she's like, just come back to Sleds, just get, just try it here. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. And she came back here. She lived in the transitional living center. She like came to groups. She started finding that connection, the connection with her culture, connection with her people. And now she works here at the clinic. She's just such an asset to have in the community. And I heard her share her story and it made me cry. And she was just so thankful for Sissy being really relentless and getting her back here because she was always missing that connection with her tribe and her people. And yeah, it was great. Just like seeing that, people get that connection. Because a lot of the time, we grow up and we know that it's disrespectful. Like, you don't go to powwow, you don't go to sweats if you're under the influence. If you're not in a good way. And so a lot of my youth, I avoided those things. And so then I didn't really know a lot about it, and it's embarrassing. It's like, oh, you're native, but you don't know how to pour sweat, you don't know how to do this and that. So it's like, kind of makes people not really, just kind of shameful. And so we just try to teach people like, hey, man, like, it's good that you're being respectful and you're avoiding these things. And now let's learn it. It's never too late to learn your culture. And, we have a Red Road group and Jacob Reed, our mental health case manager, he's super knowledgeable. And, we try to do that. Sissy was just talking to me this morning about having Nick Viles, our language guy, and because we'll always ask people about their culture and they say they want to learn the language. So we're going to try to talk to him and have him come out and just, teach a little bit of the basic words in our language. And Sissy wants them to be able to say their name and something they're grateful for. So, that's the goal. That's the goal.
And then when I think about other things at work, I have to talk about our MAP program. We work closely with our MAP program, Lacey Martin and her team. We've integrated more this year than we ever have. And, Matt and the harm reduction model has definitely been, part of a lot of people's success stories, right? And I don't know if do you want to say anything, Lacey?
I wanted to touch base on the TLC. I think it's huge for reunification of families. It's that supportive environment for mothers to be with their children, and get the services here. And those success stories have been huge, and being able to follow them and their children. As far as the MAT goes with the fentanyl crisis, I think that MAT's been a game changer and saved lives. Typically tribes are abstinence-based. And so it's just another tool that we've brought in to allow people to have the choice to drive their own treatment plan and program, help them, make informed decisions for their own health and well-being. And it's been a game changer for some people. We've saved lives. So it's been great working with their team and integrating their teams together. Did we cover what MAT is? Is everybody familiar? I know we tend to use lingo.
Sorry, medication assisted therapy.
We're
So it's.
full burst.
Can you also touch on, the thing that I learned when the governor was here, the, huge success of the rapid induction program? And maybe it's not a huge success, but it sounded like it
I
was.
feel like it's a huge success for our people. I think we're still the only, I'm the only nurse in the county that does that same day induction. So you have somebody that comes in and they want help and often they're turned away, they need to make an appointment, they need to go to detox. They have all these barriers, right? And sending them out the door, we don't often get them back in the door. And so did a lot of trainings and brought that back to the table. The providers were like, you're crazy. Like, no, there is other people doing this. So we've been able to do same day inductions and get people on Sublocade, which is the injectable form of MAT, and it captures them for a longer period of time. So we can get them more stable and clear and get them to the resources that they need. And that's also been a game changer.
Cause I think what we were seeing was, tell me if I get it wrong, but the thing that was shocking to me is that in order to go to treatment or detox, you have to be clean and not use.
Every week, I feel like there's a different rule, or every week the rules change, and from treatment center to treatment center, and you guys could speak on this too, it's not the same. And so they were like, well, if they're clean off of that, if they're not dirty for fentanyl, we can't take them, or if they're not using this, then we don't, and then the amount of time that they're there really isn't a long enough amount of time. And then the biggest barrier is we only have one detox in our county, and the other ones are multiple hours away, and those take resources, and people don't want to leave their children or their homes or their jobs, or, it just creates more barriers. So being able to capture them the same day and provide them with resources right now in real time, just been huge.
Yeah, if you know anything about addiction, you know that there's been this big, have somebody.
About
Yeah, whenever they're willing and they're ready to make changes, so for them to be able to do that, it's a game changer.
Yeah, and I think as a clinic, and as a tribe in that instance, and I have goosebumps when I talk about it, we do our best work in the middle of the crisis. We come together as an entire unit and do what we need to do right now. And it's been phenomenal to watch.
And also I'm the reentry coordinator, and like the work they do, this whole fentanyl thing's new and it's scary, right? Like we got people that have, went to prison a few years ago, well, they don't know nothing. If they're opiate addicts, they don't know nothing about fentanyl. And it's so scary for them to be getting out of prison and coming into something that they have no clue about. Now, I'm sure they've heard about it and stuff, but, so like, Lacey's just been amazing to work with. As soon as we have people coming out, we work together and, we've really been able to help people, overcome some of their barriers, get their license and all the stuff. We work together and we help them, and, it makes me, knowing that we have Lacey here and that we can do all this, it makes me, sleep better at night, knowing that it's not just, hey, best of luck to you, like.
Yes, schedule an appointment, see ya.
Yeah.
Jason?
I just wanted to remind us, we have about 5 minutes. I didn't know if there was anything else you wanted to hit on, or just want to open that for Q&A.
I think it would be good to mention the mobile health unit as a future service as well. So Dee and Lacey, because we're in the middle of planning that out now. We got funding secured for that. We got it approved through tribal council. We're now designing the mobile unit as we speak. And so did you guys want to talk about those types of services?
So we're eventually gonna have 2 units, is the hope, the goal. The first unit is gonna be primarily for our care treatment team, and that includes Safe Star, which is for sexual assault and domestic violence crisis calls. So we can go out and meet them where they are. Somebody in that situation doesn't want to come here, they don't want to come. We need to go to them, be able to, and then it will have behavioral health services, harm reduction services, medication, where we can go out and meet people where they are. So we're super excited with that.
I think all I can speak to is that it's in the design stage. And so we're in the beginning stages of planning, training staff, making sure staff's trained on crisis response, make sure that everybody's responding in a trauma-informed way and culturally sensitive. So we're in the planning stages of that, because we're about a year away, aren't we? Maybe 2?
Yeah, the build on the unit's about 14 months.
And we just started this past month. So, like. Is there anything else you wanted us to do?
Without getting too far in the weeds, maybe the 30-second on deflection, kind of, because we're gonna be talking about deflection programs here in a minute. Just kind of, I know you and I have had conversations about how difficult it is, while it's nice that tribes got to set aside, it's coming in a different way, but also we have a responsibility for our 11 counties, and thank you for pointing that out, reminded me of that in a very important meeting. But thinking about the difficulties that we're running through with implementing an effective deflection program while still trying to leverage resources with our, county partners, when you have 11 counties who are probably all doing it different. Is there anything I didn't touch on with the deflection? I mean, it's just, I don't know, you had consultation, or you,
We do have consultation this Friday with Casey Beck.
and we appreciate the opportunity for you to do that in a good way, that you would come to us and go, how do you see that happen? And also, I think it's a big, huge. I just want to make sure we hit on that, because I know we are talking about deflection.
I just want to say, we don't have time now, but I do have some thoughts.
Since we started late, we have that pushback time, and there's somebody who can't present until 1. So if we wanted to add an additional 10 minutes, we would still be fine.
Yeah, I mean, we still have till at least 12.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I think we have time for Q&A. and-
Yeah, I'm just trying to keep us on.
Yeah, yeah, no, appreciate it.
Carol took it, she was like, down in a minute, and I'm like, okay, I'll try.
Well, before we get too deep into the deflection
I think
conversation.
Patrick would like to.
If you guys don't mind, it's not a bother, if we could just collect the plates and then scurry out of here. I have to have a bus back by 1, so there. I apologize, we'll be as quick and quiet as possible.
Well, let's take this moment to ask any questions we have from the presenters. So do folks on the commission have any questions they want to have? I'll pick it off with one. Can you tell us a little bit more about your transitional living program? How many units do you have? How long do people stay? Is it for families, single individuals? What does that look
I
like?
can speak. Yeah. So we have a men's transitional living center. And right now, we have 4 individuals in there. I think we have 6 rooms. And so the length of stay out, it varies. We like to look at each individual. We take it on an individual by individual basis.
Dean, I also jump in. Housing in Lincoln County, the vacancy rate is less than 0.5%. So if you think about someone coming in and out of treatment with maybe a great, not great job history versus a renter who works at NOAA or the college, like housing is also a huge critical need in this county. So sorry.
Absolutely. And what I would like to highlight is that OHA, we have funding through OHA, the housing grant. And we're gonna be doing a build out for the TLC. We're gonna rebuild the men's TLC. And it'll have 7 to 9 rooms. And then we're gonna add a duplex unit. It'll be 2 units, and it'll be for families, men with their children. And it'll be separate, so they'll be separate entrances, but they'll be on the same campus. So I want to highlight that. For the women's transitional living, right now, we have a unit that has 5 rooms in it. And it's not all the way full, with 4 rooms. We have 4 girls. And, the length of stay is anywhere from, the
About
average,
2 years, I would say.
yeah, 2 years.
2 years is.
Because we get people, they come straight out of treatment, they come to in order for them to be there, they're an intensive outpatient at first. They do 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. As soon as we get them in, if they're tribal members, we start trying to, we get them on the tribal housing list. A lot of them are banned from tribal property because of
History.
the history of drug addiction. So we start working on that. The housing works really closely with us and, you know, Lacey's written letters, we write letters for people. And then we get them to, be in consideration if they get taken off the trespass list. We've had really good success. We have a lot of people that have, had the exception to go to the TLCs, the on the ban list. They go there, they get their treatment done, they get off the ban list, and then they end up getting the tribal housing. So that's like the end goal of what we're trying to do, and we're pretty successful with this.
It also connects them to other community members that have lived experience that are in the same situation, right? So they can connect with the other women or the other men community. So it helps them have like a community wrap around them right from the get-go.
Other folks have questions, thoughts?
Thank you guys.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Go learn stuff at school now.
And make more good food.
Also adding to the women's TLC, so we're gonna have a build out on that as well. We're gonna, add 2 duplexes. So we'll have, 2 duplexes to accommodate women with their children. And we expect to start that in 2025, probably in the spring. We don't know how long, it could be well into 2026 before we're open. But we're really excited about that.
Great.
I think all of us are like, have 0 patience. We want it all done yesterday and be able to take advantage of the opportunities they present for sure.
All right, what's another question? I don't know if now Commissioner Bovet, you want to talk about any thoughts you have around elections? Yeah.
I'll hear it too.
Well, I'm happy to,
We're
but I
excited.
mean, I don't want to use up a whole lot of time, but should I just start the reflection conversation?
Well, so, yeah, I guess that's next up, and this will be a great segue.
Into segue.
election. Yeah.
So, and I'm just gonna speak extemporaneously, you might say. We just had a hearing yesterday in front of the Joint Addictions Committee, the legislature, hearing the first reports that we'll hear something about today. And then I presented Technical Corrections Bill, House Bill 4002. I think there's a lot of folks in our legislature that don't really understand what deflection is. And I think we have to help everyone understand what this is supposed to be doing. And then if I can add my quick comments, Lisa, about what we were thinking when we negotiated that bill in the Speaker's office on the morning of President's Day in terms of why we plugged in the tribes, I'll explain what our thought was. Now, you might find that thought to be misplaced, but I'll at least tell you what we were thinking. So deflection, for those of you not familiar, is just a broad encompassing term relating to one of the 4 categories of diverting people out of the justice system. For those of you with a behavioral health background, it's equivalent to SIM 1, Sequential Intercept Model 1. This is taking folks straight off the street and doing intervention on the street or as soon as you can. That window that you didn't see it, Jesse, but Sissy was going like this. It's grabbing that. It doesn't work for everybody, but it works for enough people that the science and the evidence says you ought to be doing it if you can, because the sooner you can peel people off during that window, the better. Our evidence base is largely out of programs like LEAD, Law Enforcement Assisted Diversion, out of Seattle. There's one operating in Marion County as well. But that's just one type of deflection program. Some legislators were saying, well, you can't really cite people and have it be deflection. That's not true. You can actually have people show up in arraignment and divert them straight out from there. That's another point of potential diversion. It's not like what I would call SIM 2, later diversion, which is a traditional DUI diversion program, conditional discharge, where we get a lot of drug court people. That's further down the road. It's trying to grab folks early. And the magic, if there is a magic involved, to me, what the data tells me is it largely involves peer mentors. It's about injecting peer mentors, quite literally, if you can, on the street. And helping folks meeting them where they're at right then, especially if they're in Sissy's window. And that's how it works. And I think there's some folks that want to tell everybody you have to do it this way. And my problem with that is we know from a drug experience, and hope, especially the story of hope, educates us that you can't require people to have 100% fidelity to program design. I stole hope from Judge Alm in Oahu. If I would have planted his exact program in Lincoln County, it wouldn't have worked. We've proven that with other demonstration projects that have been funded in Oregon. You have to make adjustments based on culture, law, community, resources, all these other things. And so deflection is going to look different in 11 different counties. And I'm sorry you have such huge service territory. I know it's complicated, but we have to maintain some flexibility for local control. I heard Lisa say earlier today, I don't know if I can get the quote right, if you've seen one tribe, you've seen one tribe. I often quote a famous county judge who often said, if you've seen one Oregon County, you've seen one Oregon County. And that's true for Lincoln County. I work for Washington County now. We have resources up there that I wish I could just plop down in Lincoln County. And quite frankly, yes, the things here, they're back there.
No, they're all mine.
I know they're all, but that's not the way it works. So there has to be flexibility at the beginning ramp up period of this time, maximum flexibility, in my opinion, which is how we essentially, made drug courts statewide, how we expanded justice reinvestment statewide. So these are successful proven models. So I'm hoping folks will have a little bit of flexibility to make sure that deflection programs peel off the folks that we can grab early. Where I see tribes fitting in, and I understand you'll have to integrate in with 11 programs. I get it. I'm on the deflection team in Washington County, and it's going to look different. It does look different than Clackamas. It looks very different than Multnomah, very different than other counties. Marion County is already very well established. It's their lead program. And so really what I was envisioning, and I think the speaker was envisioning, was to make sure the tribes had the funding, so they had the resources to really reach out to those programs and not necessarily provide a whole new deflection program, but to make sure that tribal members of any tribe, really nationally, we were talking about how this clinic serves not just Celeste tribal members, but tribal members from around the nation that happen to be within their service territory. And to make sure that we are trauma informed and we are culturally providing what is needed to help people maximize Sissy's window. I'm going to call it Sissy's window from now on. And that was the idea. So not necessarily that we would have 36 programs, eventually get there, 36 programs plus 9 more. That wasn't really the idea. It would be, and tribes are different, as you know. The resources in Warm Springs is different than Umatilla, which is different than Celeste, which is different than Coos, and on and on. So really, it's about plugging and playing best practices in to make sure that if, for example, we get a deflection in Washington County for tribal, that we can refer for services. And that was the thought. Now, you may think that's, oh my God, Rob, that's just crazy. And that's a lot of integration, but that's why hopefully some dollars will flow to help with that. So anyways, there's my 5-minute speech, Paul. Thank you, Mr. Chair, for the moment.
Great. So I know that we're gonna hear from the executive team, next. I'm not sure whether that's you, Ryan, or Kelly.
I'll kick us off.
Okay.
Turn it over to Cal.
Great.
You want me to put the presentation in?
So I would invite, I mean, if you want to stay and for the whole meeting, I would invite you. Also, there's sometimes we have things to do. So however, if you need to excuse yourself, that's fine. I really appreciate, if you are gonna step out, I appreciate your time and energy today. I'm just touched.
All right.
So, while Carol's pulling up some slides, just wanted to spend a little bit of time to refresh or update you all with some of what we shared with the legislature yesterday. But it's the programmatic side Much of what was shared is, ground setting you all are familiar with, as we've done, I think, monthly updates for a little while now. And then we'll transition to Kelly, who will be able to talk about some of the, maybe the newer things since your last update, where we, and what we were doing with data.
Going to share
Yeah,
this.
so. When it comes up, you'll see this slide with the map, just as a reminder, so there are 28 counties that have applied and instituted deflection, that reflecting 27 programs. That explain, because we do have one or two that are working together, explicitly. I'm struggling to remember all the other things on that slide, so hopefully I will be that quick, but,
Ever. Next time we're in those days.
Welcome to rural, Oregon.
It's just trying to find it. I'm very confused. Okay. Okay, better-ish. Do you want me to go to the next one?
I have two.
That's not this. I don't want anyone.
One of the things I'm also working on is upgrading our broadband availability. Currently, we share 1 gig of data throughout our entire thing. So the eventual goal is to have 10 gig of shared data. So what you're experiencing is what we experience. In fact, when we have an executive team meeting with all 15 of us on a Zoom call or a Teams call, there's not enough capacity to have us all. So this is really truly rural tribal living.
Yeah. Is this the right one?
One more, please.
Yeah, give it 8 minutes.
Hey, there we go. So, see, got there. So you see the bullets on the slide. I wanted this as a way of a program update, just kind of letting you all know that where we're at right now to say 25 of these counties, most of which, or majority of them, that is, are using this lead like this officer intervention approach that I was just touched on here, although we are seeing others using a mobile crisis kind of response team and or stabilization or deflection center as a part of their program. To date, there are 15 programs that are fully executed at contract. So, or as of yesterday's date anyway, the others are shortly thereafter. As with most of our grants, the delays typically just, county procedure to get the process completed. It's not anything of concern. 10 programs are currently operational. So there's been, through the application process, we asked a question, but we're always flexible on when do you intend to implement your program, and that continues to kind of shift a little bit over time as counties are working to implement that. At this time, there are 10 of them, with 5 right around the corner for the beginning of October. As it relates to the money, then those that are fully executed by the end of this week will get their first disbursement or their next disbursement if they were an adopter in that first week of October. And then posted online, and then this slideshow is a link to some of the summary memos we've created previously, and I think shared with you all. We continue to be publicly available as it relates to what is happening in each of those counties or these 27 programs. So next one, please. Next one, I believe, is it wakes up is related to just kind of what's next and where we're going for grant administration. Oh, take that back. I skipped the important piece of a new dashboard, and Kelly will dive more into some of the data as it relates, or in a data dashboard there, but we have loaded now a programs dashboard. And what that programs dashboard does is we meet the statutory obligation to make available what programs are operating. But in true CJC fashion, of course, we're a little programming that to share what and how funding is being currently utilized. And so you can see here, we kind of classified the funding in these 3 buckets: building programs, delivering, and serving. You can see 50% of the funds are going towards serving participants and then in a treatment capacity, with then some breakdown around kind of the facilitation of the delivery that is being done by county partners, DAs, law enforcement, and then the coordination of building program is another big chunk of funding right now. on the dashboard, which is interactive, you can then click, you'll be able to look at this breakdown for each of those 27 programs, and you can look at then what types of, funds or the expenses they're utilizing the funding for any of these categories. So it's live now, on CJC webpage.
Mr. Chair, can I ask a
Yeah,
question?
yeah. Go ahead.
So thank you. I appreciate that there's 27 different programs. Is there something in the legislation designed to shield counties or cities, law enforcement officers from liability as they're making that decision of deflection?
In which, what was it?
So let's say a deputy decides to put a person that's addicted to drugs, committing a crime because they have drugs on them, they're using drugs, sends them into deflection, and their deflection is unsuccessful and they commit a crime in that time. And the victim of the crime decides, well, you should have put them in jail. Is there something designed to protect that liability? We're literally asking law enforcement officers to be judges.
Not to my knowledge, but I'm not probably the best expert to speak to, but they'll let it
I
beyond.
think there may be some concern about that amongst some of the counties.
Yeah, maybe I guess people looking at me, so I'd probably address that. There's nothing built into the statute, Commissioner, that would address that specifically, but really the design of the programs that I'm familiar with has the law enforcement officer doing really an initial screening to see if the person is even eligible. And really the determination as to whether someone is going into the deflection program is up to both the person and in many cases, peer navigator on scene. And if the peer navigator is not available to the criteria established by the deflection team. So really what the officer is doing in many cases, including the need, is just calling in a resource. If the design that I'm familiar with is used, if they're actually making more of a, and for example, and I can only speak to Washington County specifically because I agree with those forms and stuff. But really our district attorney's office has set the criteria together with the Health and Human Services Department. They basically set the process and they actually screen the cases literally the next day as part of the whole deflection program that's going on in Washington County, which I think is very similar to Clackamas County. So, if we need to build in some sort of discretionary immunity standard in the statute, certainly happy to carry that kind of thing forward. I haven't heard the concern from the deflection programs that I'm working with because really what the officer's doing is making a call out. And it's my call down here in many cases. And that's just because the officer has made the determination, while I have what is, we'll just call it in law enforcement, like a standalone PCS. And it's not because I'm hooking them up because we've got warrants out for X, Y, and Z, and we're hauling them off to jail. This is someone who I would otherwise just be giving a citation to. That's typically the way it is working. But there could be different circumstances in different counties, because like Ryan said, there's 27 of them going on, and I think I understand Washington counties really well. And a few others, a whole lot less. Marion County's pretty well. I got no idea what's going on in about 21 counties right now. I hope to learn more. So that was a long answer to a legitimate question that I haven't probably done enough of anything on.
Short answer is no.
And the short answer is no, nothing in the statute.
So a couple other pieces on the program side is just kind of what is coming next. So now as these grants and contracts are being executed, we'll be able to quarterly reporting process like any of our other grants. This grant, what we tried to signal early on was that we'll be asking in the quarterly process for any program changes, again, recognizing the kind of need for flexibility and the evolution of programs as they're kind of being started fresh and new, and on a pretty expedited timeline. There's likely to be changes as they learn in each jurisdiction. So we've opened up that opportunity, or will be through our quarterly reporting process. We've also made some adjustments to.
Ryan, what's the threshold for changes that require the grant review committee to approve them versus stuff that can be done? Is there like a 10% threshold?
Yeah, we're currently kind of exercising what we established on the grant programs in our administrative guide about 10%. Or larger change to the budget or a substantive change to the program. So that is the impacts grant review committee kind of heard and understood a program to be what it was when they approved it. So adjustments to that alter that significantly are brought before that committee as well to make those changes. We are in a little bit of a flux period right now as there was that extension of funding in a number of counties based on somehow unallocated funds. And so we have worked with the counties to determine what is within the lines, right, or otherwise, for this particular period. Anything moving forward, say in October, reporting in future quarters, that same kind of threshold will apply to determine what comes before the interest. And so there are some of the counties that we've talked with to say, well, what you're talking about right now, the extra fund probably is best either held for the committee based on its thresholds or be reconsidered and stick closer to what you initially applied for in July. The second bullet there is just to say that for the reason of change and potentially the challenge of getting programs off the ground or other complications, we did make a slight adjustment to the disbursement approach, allowing for a space of time where programs can get rolling, programs can be looked at, the review committee can meet, and if need be, make decisions to adjust.
So with this grant program, like I know with JRI, you've got, it operates during the course of the biennium, July 1 through June 30th, and then there's a 6-month window beyond that counties have to be able to spend down the funds. With this new grant program, what's the legislature's intent around spending timelines? Are they expecting these funds to be utilized during the course of the fiscal year? Or do you have a little bit of play beyond that?
Well, so how we're looking at it right now is to try to keep in line with the biennium. As we cross bienniums, we run into some administrative challenges and other complications. So as of right now, right, this came through a short session, they submitted biennium, we're looking at it as a grant period that covers that second year of the biennium, right? With hopeful refunding or, additional funding for the next 2-year period in June, so that it syncs up kind of nicely. So short way of saying, I think the expectation right now is that the current project period, which goes from either April or July of this year through June of the next, that's the period of time we're hoping that the county uses all of its current funds.
So
And then,
I have to think that given the challenge in ramping these programs up, that it's highly unlikely that we're gonna see all of these funds utilized by June 30th of next year. So what's gonna happen?
I think that's to be determined, and partly why we created that gap in the disbursement schedule, to be able to make that evaluation and see if there are in fact unallocated funds and be able to maybe make pivots or changes or determine that approach without it already gone out at the door at that point in time.
Or is there any requirement that we have to give money back if it's not spent?
No, the way it's classified, it is other fund, right, as a source. So we have some flexibility, but I think back to like you said, intent, we have to navigate that as we probably get closer to having information.
Great, thank you.
So then ongoing data collection, analysis, and reporting. So I will not spend a lot of time here because Kelly will, but just to say that we will continue to monitor also, beyond just the programmatic expenses and some of those pieces, data associated with deflection and PCS and otherwise. Currently with these 2 dashboards that have been launched on the web pages, I mentioned the grant funding dashboard, focused on the programs and the expenses that they or how they're utilizing their funds, and then an outcomes dashboard that we can talk more about to show you what we currently have there, but both of which are designed, or I should say, are intended to grow. much like if the local level programs are growing, things are changing, we're learning a lot, we'll likely be the same with our dashboards as well. I think that's my minus one, but let's click and see. Yep. That's me. Okay.
Good afternoon, Jim Solomon, commissioners. I have some early data on drug possession trends to share with you all. And kind of have a list here of what we're looking at. So most of this is drug possession arrest trends post September 1. I've been a researcher at CJC for quite a while. The quickest we've ever done something is monthly. And even with that, recognizing there's a little bit of a lag, right? Things will change. We've really sped this up. And we're doing a weekly update. So let's go to the next slide just to give some background on this. So for today, we have statewide arrest trends to here. So just as a reminder, these are arrests where the person was fingerprinted. And fingerprinting is required for felony and misdemeanor drug and sex crimes. And that data is pretty quick, right? It's once the person is fingerprinted, that live scan, it all whoop, comes right through. So there still can be somewhat of a lag, but it's pretty short, which is why we feel comfortable kind of releasing this weekly information. And the data is pretty straightforward. We have date of arrest, we have the specific ORS codes associated with that arrest event. So we can tell when we have an arrest that has a drug possession code on there. Now, we are missing some of the details with that. We can't tell in the arrest data if it's the new U misdemeanor PCS or drug enforcement misdemeanor for the user amount, if it's the substantial quantity A misdemeanor, or if it's that felony commercial drug offense level. Now, from historical data, I think we can feel confident that the majority of these are the user amounts, the new U misdemeanor, but we don't know for sure in the arrest data. We'll have that as the court data starts to come through. Some of that is that there's an investigative process here, right? Things need to be weighed. There needs to be some analysis of what type of drug it was. So that will come through later. Now, these are folks that are fingerprinted. But to Chair, to Vice Chair Babette's point, some of these folks could still be deflected. So they may still be eligible and may still be offered deflection. So that's not quite clear yet either. And then we did, we've seen already with like a weekly update, we'll update. So we know that things are going to change a little bit as there's a little bit of lag, or maybe, somebody entered something in wrong and then they fix it. But we haven't seen a huge change yet, so we've been releasing this information weekly. Chair, someone can answer the question.
Yeah.
Y'all do an amazing job of data analysis, so I always appreciate, and I'm assuming that you're following that. What I would be interested in knowing is, when folks are offered deflection after the fact, like seeing those numbers, only because is it something that might be amiss in the initial deflection program or that kind of stuff? So are you going to be tracking that and reporting that out on the dashboard?
So yes, this is, for right now, we already have access to this information. We can pull it very quickly. So this is our initial first look at arrests. And so I think we have here just in a later presentation today, the OHSU team's working on the deflection data management information. So they have a draft data collection plan in place that is really close to being finalized. And that's through the red cap system, which is the same that the impacts grantees use. So that will be the information to track that this person was offered and started a deflection program. And so then we will have the data coming from that system once it is up and running and operational. And actually county programs currently are collecting that information on, heaven help us, a PDF form. But only for the first month is the plan here. And then we'll have that electronic system up and running for pull that.
So Kelly, would it be safe to say that the data that you have so far, we should take a little bit with a grain of salt, given that most of these deflection programs aren't even up and operational yet? So I know in Lane County, when the DA's office started looking at the notes in the PCS charges, that the officers were saying this person would have been a great candidate for deflection, but deflection isn't operational, we're arresting them, we're charging them.
Sure.
So I have to think that 3 weeks in, we don't have a whole lot of counties that are fully operational. So I guess I'm wanting to exercise some caution or interpreting too much in these data.
Yes, I think that's a fair point. I think what we have here is an initial first look at the impact of the law change of having PCS now at a misdemeanor level. And so it gives us some information about what is happening with that very substantial law change.
Yeah,
It's not really gonna tell us much, probably nothing about a deflection program yet, right? 3 weeks in, were any of these arrests eligible for deflection? I can't tell, right? Even if it's an arrest where PCS is the only charge, which I'll show you what that looks like, there can still be other criteria which makes that person ineligible for a deflection program. And so some of that we don't have, we don't have the data to query that information. And so I don't think this tells us much about deflection. It tells us what's happening with
the
this
new law.
the new
right.
misdemeanors.
Yeah. I should know that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I agree with everything in the interchange I just heard, and I'm saying this almost reluctantly, but I feel like I need to say it because I was even surprised to see what I was seeing in Washington County and these two other counties I'm aware of. And that is, and I'll just call it what it is, pure anecdotal, good early signs. And the good early signs I want to talk about, and they may not hold, because we're only 3 weeks in. But I was looking at data out of the Seattle Lead programs, the studies, similar programs in other parts of the nation, and Marion County's own data. And we are seeing anecdotally already, and it won't be reflected in your data yet, more people accepting deflection than thought were accepted. More people showing up in court, even if they weren't immediately deflected, than I thought were going to show up in court. And that's after you have to extract out of the PCSUs, especially all the people that were charged with PCSU is really an accessory to other things they're being arrested for. You have to wash all of those out, which quite frankly is over half. Because if someone's arrested for burglary and they have some fentanyl, yeah, they're getting charged with it. That's about the burglary case. That's not about any possession, right? So you have to really isolate those, and we can already start to isolate those locally, but they won't be reflected in your data. I just wanted to say that because you may hear some people talk about, wow, things are really happening. And I've had people guessing about why things are happening and not happening. And I know Dr. Hoover's going to be on later. I'd be interested in his take on some of those too. He was actually in my class last night talking about this. And I just wanted to mention that and with a caveat again, all anecdotal, all early, nobody should take anything from it, way too early to reach any conclusions. But I'm already seeing more people, wanting, as Dr. Hoover says, to take this door, and as he often says, there's no wrong door. And I'm seeing more people take this door than I thought.
So is this windows growing?
Yeah.
Tell us about the
Sure.
data.
Okay, so let's go to the next slide. So this is the data that's on the dashboard currently. Our plan is to update it on Wednesday, so bookmark it if you're interested. So this has statewide weekly drug possession arrest counts over time, and that red line chart is just what's on the dashboard there. So this goes back to about mid-2018. So you can see from mid-2018 to before COVID, about 300 arrests. For drug possession a week. Now, this is an arrest with a drug possession charge. It could include other criminal charges as well. So this is everything. We see the big drop with COVID as probably not a surprise to our commissioners. The rebound that summer after COVID, and then when 10 passes, drops, another pretty substantial drop. And then under measure 110, 40 to 50 arrests per week. September 1, we do see a pretty substantial increase in those arrests, and we have seen that for the first 3 weeks. Now, about a quarter of these are where we see that PCS is the only criminal charge on the arrest. Is what we see on that record. So the other 75% have something else on there. About 30% have a warrant or probation or parole violation, so a status offense on there. About 30% also have a property crime, most common is theft 2. About 14% have a person crime, menacing and assault were the most common there. So you see the table underneath the chart, so it shows the actual counts. So you can see, 66 the first week, 56, 45 of those, PCS kind of standalone arrests. And then, the PCS with other crimes are the higher counts that we're seeing there. And to, to the point that we were just describing there, those 66 arrests the first weeks, I'm not sure if those folks are eligible for deflection, right? They could already be on supervision, they could have a criminal history requirement, they could have other open criminal cases, that are different arrest events kind of co-occurring there. So that will be, the county programs will navigate identifying, who would be eligible for deflection and, different pathways, to get there. So this is just that arrest information for that. So yeah, just the 3 weeks of data. So we're not doing too much slicing and dicing yet, but for you all, and let's go to the next slide. We did do a county map, to show now, again, this is all arrests, so could have other criminal cases as well. And a geography quiz, since the county names are not on there. But the dark blue in Southern Oregon at 159 is Jackson County. So for the first 3 weeks, we are seeing the highest count in Jackson County. Again, this is including other arrests. This is everything. Multnomah, 77, Clackamas at 72, and Washington at 62. So we do have this county level information. Now, if you think about taking this and then getting down to just those standalone and then trying to figure out on who's on supervision, it's really too early to try to piece out, some trends here. Also thinking about demographic information, also a little bit early to slice and dice, but we have that, and that is our goal as data comes in is to add that to the dashboard so that is also available.
What do you have to say about Jackson County?
I know. I know. They have the resources to do
Yeah.
it. They put money into law enforcement, they have the money to do it, and that's, all this is gonna be very subjective to what counties have for resources. I mean, in Douglas County, we're down to a couple deputies at night for the whole county.
Yeah, that makes sense to me, but Washington County has resources. They're a larger county and they have a third of the number of people that have been.
Sure, nobody in Washington County is in drugs, though.
Well, pay attention to the news later this week and you'll see a different story on that particular too. But yeah, I can't explain specifically, but keep in mind, Jackson County is one of the highest population counties in Oregon. People forget that.
Yeah.
And they have a few very big cities with very big police forces. And so it's all a matter of, what you're running into and priorities. So again, this is 3 weeks.
Yeah,
so
no, I totally.
If you make too much of it, any of
But
it.
it's the only thing
I know.
on here that kind of
It's
jumps out
struck,
at
struck, we're expecting to see
Yeah.
maybe, half that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I will add, many commissioners, been involved in some of our justice for investment work. We see, I think at one point, 2021, maybe Jackson County was pretty high on prison. So there is enforcement there's drug activity happening, enforcement for drug activity, even with under 110, we saw, those higher rates of prison intakes for drugs.
They still have an narcotics enforcement team. Lincoln County doesn't have one. So it's, again, I hate to say it again, you've seen one Oregon County, you've seen one Oregon County.
I want credit if you're gonna write that.
Yes, actually, you've seen one Oregon tribe, you've seen one Oregon tribe. I agree, that's Lisa's point.
Since he gets something, I want something.
Yeah.
Carol, let's go to the next slide. This is not on the dashboard, but I think it's pretty important context here. So again, the red line is that 7-day kind of rolling total of arrests per possession. So again, we see the increase September 1st. And then the dark, light blue, gray line, depending on your view of the screen. That is just overall arrests in general, right? So of course it goes up with the addition of drug possession, but you can see it goes up even more than that too, right? So overall arrests have a substantial increase on September 1, partially with drug possession arrests, partially with some other things as well. And so we did some digging into that increase, and that's really driven by arrests that have a status offense there, which would be where there's a warrant, a failure to appear event, a parole probation violation. So those are for individuals, they already have some criminal justice involvement and have had, you know, a warrant or a violation come up. But that is a pretty substantial increase there, about 350 statewide to over 1,000 that first.
So would warrant sweeps account for, or, I mean,
It would make sense with that trend that we're seeing, but I don't know.
Do you think maybe the cops are just having contact with these people more because before they knew there was nothing they could do, so they're kind of inquiring about stuff?
Bingo.
Yeah.
It's not the warrants, it's exactly what Jesse just described.
Makes sense.
So this is entertaining, surprising, I don't even know the right word, but, because I think everybody thought, oh, PCS arrests, now that we can do it again, are gonna go sky high, but you're saying as a result, I mean, yes, what you're saying is more contact, but it is overall less than the trend we would have expected, and we would have expected a trend if it was solely due to recriminalization, to go straight back up and be about, okay. Just wanna make sure, because numbers hard.
So we did see this substantial increase September 1 for PCS arrests, but also show a substantial increase for overall arrests as well at the time. Next slide. We have not seen the same pattern for drug delivery. And so the changes in the bill for drug delivery were effective, April 1. And so the lower dark blue line is convictions for drug delivery, felony convictions, and then that light blue line is arrest. So again, we see the drop for COVID, March 2020. We see the drop in September 21 with the Hubble case decision. And then the changes in House Bill 4002 are effective April 1, but we haven't seen an increase yet in drug delivery arrests or convictions from those law changes. Now, this is not unexpected because drug delivery cases are complex. They take more involved investigation and prosecution. And so those are going to take some time to start for that to build into kind of law enforcement process to be able to do that work. So not a surprise, but we haven't seen an impact there where, September 1, we did see the possession impact.
And when was the Hubble decision? When did that go into effect?
September 2021. So that's that. I want to run up there and point at it, but right in the middle,
Yes.
right in the middle.
Yeah.
We definitely see the impact of that decision in the arrest. We see it in the conviction data too. This is just on the scale, so it's just kind of hard to see, but yeah, that big arrest drop in the middle is September 2021, which is when that decision was at the end of the month. So it didn't take long to see the impact there in the drug delivery arrest at that time. But haven't seen an increase yet, post 4002, which is not unexpected.
Anecdotally, it will come. I think you'll see it the next time you report. I suspect, strongly suspect. But it's for exactly the same reason described. These are more complex cases. It takes time. We don't have a lot of interagency narcotics teams working these types of cases anymore in Oregon for reasons I will for you to modify the diagram. So anyways, but those are ramping slowly kind of back up here and there.
And the possession cases often lead to this too.
Yes.
Now that you can negotiate with folks that are being charged with possession, they can help with this too. So
That was one part of my 5 minute time.
sorry.
No, that's perfect. You did it quick.
In Lincoln County, we went and the judge asked me to go talk to her and we went and talked to different like Newport and Big City of Walport, like, since the old narcotics plant team has been away, there's like not that fear for drug dealers anymore. And I don't think anything came of it, but we went and talked to them and just like asked all the agencies to be open to communication. Like, man, these people are selling these drugs in the community and it's in all, Walport / Toledo, Newport. Like, just have one designated officer in each place that can kind of be contact points so you guys can share data and stuff. And I don't think anything ever thing.
Let me just say this, Jesse, something might be coming out of soon. Okay. I've heard from some people that I haven't spoken to. We'll see.
I did a presentation, with a supervisor at a large Washington County agency, on a different topic, traffic stop data, but he made the very good point of, officers that were hired in 2021 and 2022. He said, we have to retrain, no, wait, we have to train officers now on this work. And in the 3 years that they've been officers, they've never done this work.
Yeah.
So there will be some transition. Next slide. I think this is the stories. Yeah, so it has only been 3 weeks. But we did, for the hearing, yesterday, we did reach out to the programs that are up and running for some narrative stories. And so Deschutes had a couple, pretty informative narrative stories of the work of their program. And then Multnomah County shared some initial information that they have of the first, 3 weeks there. I know, I hope folks can just pause for a minute so folks can read.
So this second bullet talks about a person that was released from custody. And this brings up the issue of self-referrals. I know not all counties are allowing self-referrals, but some are. And I'm curious if that, I'm assuming that's probably captured in the red cap data and not so much in your administrative data, but is that a correct assumption? Because I'm curious about that.
Yeah, we really won't have the deflection information in an administrative data source. And so, yeah, that would be in red cap to show what that referral point was for that. And, I think the thought, especially with the counties that are doing more of that officer intervention model, is that the majority will be, right?
Absolutely.
That officer intervention, but I think it's really complicated, right? As counties kind of figure some of these things out. The deputy DA might review a case and say, why the heck wasn't this person offered deflection? And then, okay, well, hey, maybe we missed this initial opportunity, but hey, we're gonna route you back around. And so then maybe it is the DA that makes that referral at that point. Or here, right, it is upon release from jail. And so, why it didn't happen before entry to jail, who knows? But this kind of gives that the next route to go.
Anecdotally, I would say there's enough, I think, again, it's an evolution that we'll have to just kind of monitor. I think we're starting to hear little stories around the exploration of self-referral.
Yeah.
How much they thought they would do and couldn't, but they should, or didn't think to do it, but now think they should. It's another piece to the wide variety of what deflection can offer. That it's kind of be borne out through this exploratory period.
And I think I just have one more slide, which is just to say more is coming. So as we've talked about, the deflection information will start to be collected. The cases that are filed will start to flow through circuit courts and we'll receive that information, and then we'll have the conviction and conditional discharge information. So CJC has a legislative report due at the end of August, 11 months, on these trends, that we will be updating on the dashboard and continuing in for this commission and other legislative committees along the way. So there will be more coming, both around thinking about deflection, but then also now we have a PCS misdemeanor with other lower level misdemeanor charges or convictions, right? Those folks will now be on a community corrections caseload, right? And then they get the conditional discharge. And so there are several threads here to keep track of as these start to go through the courts.
So the data that will be offered on the dashboard, how deep does that go into county specific data? Because one of the concerns I know when we were discussing this in Lane County is recognizing that we're not going to get a report from the CJC for a year, and trying to look in closer to real time around the jail data, because we'll know what we're reporting into red cap. But we're gonna either have to independently be tracking the jail data or looking to you in the dashboard or, you know, some tool to extrapolate, arrest data.
Yeah, the dashboard will have aggregate trend information, right? I think the deflection team staffed by the CJC, we've been thinking about this. And it feels a lot like justice reinvestment. Where, in the early days of justice reinvestment, we worked pretty closely with county programs to say, hey, your property prison intakes look high.
Yeah.
Why don't you look at that, right? Same thing, that similar vein here, right, where with the court data, we can pull cases that have just the charge for PCS and nothing else. Say, hey, it looks like you're getting a slow start. Here's the cases that may or may not have been offered deflection. Maybe give that a look, right?
Yeah.
And so that can just provide some additional support to counties as they're navigating these conflicts.
You bring up a good point. One of the things that I appreciated about when 3194 passed and we had those regional implementation committees is we got, I think on a quarterly basis, that data around prison utilization, first and second sentences. So we were looking at revocations. I mean, it was really helpful for counties to be able to see, for property crimes, here's the statewide average, here's our county's utilization rate. And it certainly impacted policy changes at the local level. So I'm curious if there's a way to provide more robust data back to the counties on maybe a quarterly basis instead of having to wait for an annual report.
Yeah, I think, the dashboard will have some of that, and I think what CJC staff can provide, will help. And I think that concludes.
Yes, I think we have a question.
There's great comments on the sort of data side of it. Are you gonna be able to report back on the folks that reoffend or commit other crimes while they're on deflection? I think that's an important data set to evaluate the success of the program.
That is our goal, yeah. So with the red cap information is that will show us who is offered, who actually participates in deflection, and then from there we can track those outcomes, right? Hey, that person was successful, but 6 months after the case was filed, that perhaps resulted in a conviction, perhaps didn't. Or, hey, look, that person, shows that they're not successful in deflection. 2 days later, the case is filed. We can kind of assume those go together and then can see the outcomes.
We certainly watch that in the drug court data and recognize there's some folks that thinks a couple times, but see a great success through drug court. And hoping we see similar success here.
And again, there's several paths here, right? So maybe deflection doesn't work for the person, but then conditional discharge is an option. They're on a community corrections caseload, right? And then with that conditional discharge, then there's an opportunity there if that is successful, right? That case is dismissed, and we kind of see if that happens, how long that took, or maybe they're not successful at conditional discharge and that results in a conviction, still on a community corrections caseload at that point, right? Criminal justice involvement outcomes.
Yeah, I mean, just a comment more than anything that I think one of the most complicated pieces of deflection that we'll have to cover or track is success. Because the number of counties and programs we talked about, every single one of them have a different definition of success. And I know that's something locally we're still struggling with. We just had our local meeting in Yamhill County yesterday. We're already making changes, and it's in that short period of time. I'm dealing with, just an example, an individual that over a 3-day period received 3 or 4 citations for deflection. And what do we do at that point? Are they still eligible? And so that's going to be a really challenging.
Yeah, I think we'll get to hear from Dr. Hoover, but I think that's going to be one of the challenges that they have in analyzing the data is that we don't have a universal definition of success. And, you know, while I agree with a lot of what you said earlier about counties having the flexibility to design the programs, I do think there are a couple of areas around eligibility and success that require further exploration in how we define those. I think it's going to be very difficult for us to really say how well this functions if we're working with 23 or 36 definitions of success. Anything else?
I think maybe just following up on that.
Yeah.
The definition of success in the program may vary, but that criminal justice outcome, right, can be a consistent
Yeah.
outcome measure. And so,
Absolutely.
hey, the failure rate of your program is really high, and then almost all of those folks have case filed, right? So is this how you're intending this to go? And yes, counties would definitely come tell through and make adjustments.
Sure, Solomon.
Yep.
I want to just play, because I hear you responding to that part, but the thing I think I caught, which to me was more maybe substantial, is entry in, right? If we're running a successful deflection program because we're only offering it to people who are clearly in the window versus, you know, some other, I could see how that could also be, would be necessary to really kind of talk about what does that look like? We don't just offer deflection to this 3% of the population. You know, maybe it's the first interaction, but like, we have to make this available to a multitude of folks.
The thing that worries me too is that counties are gonna get really caught up on their success rate, and then they're gonna make their programs really, really easy. Like, you don't really have to make any changes, you just kind of have to be engaged a little bit. And that's like, you know, that's the thing, is like, well, you know, there's no right answer right now, but.
Vice Chair, Brian?
I would just add to and echo what Lisa said, that I would also remind everybody, well, it's my opinion that the legislature severely defunded this program, or it's completely lacking that funding. That's why we have two different standards, even within Washington County. We have what our program is called the gold standard, where we have 24/7 access to peer navigators and the whole full meal deal. And then we have the rest of the county, because it wasn't fully funded. And so, we'll have a combination of what, Commissioner Norton said and what you said, Mr. Chair. And the problem, and then we'll have the data analysis issue. I mean, there's so many things that we've got to struggle through here, but I'm sounding doom and gloom, but it shouldn't be. Because we're just starting this thing. This bill just passed less than 6 months ago. The governor signed it, and we've got a whole bunch of programs. And then I know it's not true in all 27, but we have some programs that are off and running. You're even making modifications already. Justice reinvestment was similar in the sense that we got it up and running very fast. I won't name
And
any
it
other.
was underfunded.
And it was underfunded too. And I won't name any other state agencies, but give me another state agency that could have pulled this off. And I don't think it exists, personally.
Who was to staff? Ryan, and then.
Oh, I just gonna contribute by saying we will have the benefit, just as a reminder, of 2 best practice related reports associated with this too. So right, we had this movement light speed, get this started, and not just this agency, but the county community impacted by this is feeling that pressure. And understandably in this definition dilemma, we do have some resources right now that's being able to hopefully better understand and bring that together. To serve this definition.
Thank you, Sharon. I'll be very quick, but to piggyback off of Commissioner's comment with regard to underfunding, just a comment, when these cases do come to our office, which unfortunately I think we're probably, at least in my county, seeing a much bigger influx than we anticipated. The way that the budget is created through the Department of Corrections in the state, we won't see the actual population or accounting for the population that I suspect we will end up supervising until 2017. And that is really scary for us community corrections directors.
So, but correct me if I'm wrong. And Ryan or Kelly, weren't you involved in this conversation around the forecast for community corrections budget? That you estimated 4,000, roughly 4,000 new PCS cases coming on. I mean, so we know at least in 25, 27, there's gonna be a significant bump, whether it's adequate, right? Because it's this lagging indicator, which is one of the problems with community corrections formula. But I still think we're anticipating a large number of people coming onto supervision. Right? Or, I mean, am I misinterpreting something?
And I think you're correct, but don't miss the point that, well, you and I have discussed it.
Yeah.
The 1145 formula needs, well, it is broken.
It's broken.
And so what this is highlighting is the other features of our system that may have worked kind of okay in the 90s.
Yeah.
Isn't working very well anymore. And the lag, especially for counties, well, it's all 36 of them, but there's some counties and others that are really hurting, and really don't have the ability to fill the gap. And it's a real challenge.
2 counties don't do.
Well, Lake Douglas is run by the state, but yes, yeah. No.
And then there's a reason why Douglas and Lynn opted out.
Yeah.
Yeah, but anyways,
We could go down that rabbit hole.
Yeah.
So want to make sure we have time for Dr. Hoover. Is there anything else you want to share, Cal? Great, no, thank you. Is Dr. Hoover?
I think they're both were on, but if I stop sharing, it'll give them the opportunity to begin.
And Dr. Waddell too, right?
Yes, yeah.
Great. Well, we're going to hear from both of them about Red Cap and the technical assistance process that they are deeply engaged in.
Wonderful. Can everyone hear and see me now?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, great. I've been listening in for a little bit and just very interested in the discussion. So thanks for inviting me to present here. I'm going to talk specifically about OHSU's deflection implementation technical assistance. I'm going to try out the screen sharing here. Are you seeing full screen slides now?
Yes.
All right, wonderful. So yeah, I'm Dr. Dan Hoover. I'm with OHSU's section of addiction medicine. I do clinical addiction care in Washington County at the Hillsborough Medical Center. I'm on a multidisciplinary team there, along with a peer and a social worker. And then in the last couple of years, I've been doing more work with some of our local Oregon jails around their addiction treatment and medications in jail. And was very excited to become the director of deflection implementation technical assistance and have that funded by CJC in May and June. So gonna share what we've been doing essentially with you. I will make a comment that this has been more fun than I even expected, just because of the incredible enthusiasm of the local county teams, and incredible to see people excited to do this work, really kind of transformative systems work in the counties, and get to know them, hear why they're doing it, and then be able to help them in different ways. So I've been really enjoying it. What am I going to show you today? In about 10 minutes of time, I'll introduce the structure of our TA team. We'll talk about what TA activities we've been doing and what we have planned, and some of the early evaluation of the technical assistance. And then I'll show you a couple slides about our law enforcement trainings that are part of this project also. So a lot of faces on this slide, but the first thing to understand is there's 2 technical assistance teams that CJC brought into this project. There's the data team, and Dr. Waddell is going to follow my presentation and talk more about the data team. And then I'm leading our implementation team on the other side of this, and the contracts with our section of addiction medicine here at OHSU. We were really excited to help out with this and see this kind of as a marriage of the research experience of OHSU and holding best practice knowledge about addiction care. So getting to implement and help counties is really exciting. Myself and Nancy Goff are the 2 team leads within our center, and then we actually subcontracted and brought in some national experts at the Center for Health and Justice, and they've got more than 75 years of justice and health case management, and now are really recognized by the feds essentially as experts here in the field of deflection that's emerging. So Jack Charlie there is their executive director, and he's been incredible along with his team. Here's a timeline showing our activities. So we got this project up and running around the end of June, and then launched 3 regional workshops for deflection technical assistance. And I went to the Incredible Summit in Salem in the springtime, and then our intent with the workshops was to have, in addition to showing content up front, have some table group time and facilitate that with our national expert team to let counties kind of sandbox and talk about their deflection ideas and get feedback on that together. And then in July and into right now, we're doing virtual TA. So we're not trying to gather everyone again, but now folks have gone home essentially to their counties. They're working on their programs, and we're meeting with them for TA calls. And then, of course, after September, things have officially started in many of the counties. So briefly going to show you about our evaluation of these TA workshops. We had 3 different events held in Portland, Bend, and Baker City. We had presentations by the CJC, by the OHSU data team, and then by the Center for Health and Justice about deflection. We also facilitated those table groups where each county could sit down and have facilitated time together. And then this is a map just showing all the counties that participated. In summary, we had really good participation, knowing that there's 28 counties that are doing deflection, and we had 25 of them come to our events. Different team members, of course, could make it on this day, but a good showing overall, and 88 attendees in total at the 3 events. This is just one of the ways we evaluated, but a nice and kind of simple way to see some of the benefits. So we asked our participants to rate their understanding of deflection. Deflection, of course, is a term that can be conflated or confused with diversion, and there's some overlap there. It's also just something new to Oregon, right? So had a large increase in understanding of deflection towards this level of very good understanding. And then I'm excited to say we had people's outlook improve as well. We asked them about basically, do they think deflection will have a positive effect for their county? And that increased a bit as well. So that's about our workshops. And then now I want you to get an idea of what we're doing in the virtual setting now with technical assistance. So at the very highest level of technical assistance, basically, that we're providing, we're meeting with county teams, and this could be with deflection coordinators specifically, or with a small group that's been developing this since April together. So we're in those meetings and then responding when they have needs or challenges that they're facing. Some of the teams are progressing in a manualized way through this incredible guide that Center for Health and Justice has called the Deflection Solutions Action Plan, or DSAP. And they have even like a comb-bound copy of this that went out to everyone, because it's how they get their sites from scratch into operational. And it's about half of the counties that are doing this individual TA in specific meetings like this with us. We are offering some different levels of technical assistance because not everyone wants to engage in the exact same way, basically, and they have different needs. But these are some of the topics, these sticky note type graphics here are some of the topics that we are covering in the meetings, including how to talk to officers and prepare materials for them to use, the warm handoff or the bridge building between law enforcement and behavioral health teams. We talk about inclusion and exclusion criteria. I've had counties ask us about phasing in programs and how to do that. And then there was a flurry of sharing deflection position descriptions over the summer. For example, some of the resources that we've been sending around. Here's a chart showing engaging with us in these various forms of TA. So the in-person events I'd mentioned, we had 25 different counties participate. And then some of these other, I'll describe a little bit. So ECHO, this is something I direct a addiction medicine ECHO program with OHSU, but we started to use the ECHO format, which is a really successful learning collaborative format. We've started to host deflection content on that. And so we had our first ECHO that started in April and ran over the summer, and then we're launching another one in October. So we had 19 counties engage in ECHO. And then the individual TA meetings, like I said, are this kind of highest level TA where we're meeting one-on-one with you. We've also started a webinar series this fall covering topics on deflection. And so that is essentially the summary I wanted to give you of what we're doing in the TA. And I think, yeah, next I'm going to share just 2 or 3 slides about the law enforcement trainings and then have Q&A. So we recruited a small team to do a series of law enforcement trainings and go around the state and offer these regionally. I'll make a note that every local police department and county, essentially, they wanted very understandably to do their own very protocol specific training that has to do with their individual deflection program. And so these trainings are augmenting what's being offered about protocols. And I'll show you what I mean here on this slide about the content. So the content we're offering is more in line with OHSU's strengths as far as talking about addiction in the brain, understanding the impact of stigma and how to destigmatize conversations. It's an overview for officers about treatment modalities so that they understand what is being talked about when they're meeting with deflection teams, and talking about certified recovery peers who they're interacting with more and more now. And there'll be some skill practice for officers as well. And all the skill practice is framed about having productive encounters for them, like they would in a deflection context, using some motivational techniques and practicing those. And then I included a draft calendar here of where and when we're going, and we're mapping this somewhat to when local deflection programs are already operational so that we can come in and help enhance some of the partnership on the officer side with some of this additional training, and that they'll already have a bit of context for what we're doing. And the rest, I included some supplemental slides that are going to be, I think, available, but I'm going to stop presenting there so we have some Q&A.
Great. Questions for Dr. Hoover? All right. Well, thank you for that presentation, an update on the work that's occurring. We're all very excited to see how this unfolds and over time, look at what you're able to collect through RedCap. And so Dr. Waddell, are you gonna present the second half here?
Yes, can you see me? No one says no, I'll assume you can see me. So I wanted to thank Chair Solomon and the commissioners and the executive staff to give us some time today to present what we've been doing, which seems like a whirlwind, really, since April. But before I start talking at you, I've been writing down some words since this conversation started at noon. And some of these words really feel relevant to the work that we've been doing in close collaboration, both with impacts grantees over the past couple of years, as well as new relationships that my team is developing with counties and then hopefully tribes soon. Good early signs. And if you said these words, I couldn't quite see who was saying what. I think it's kind of complicated. Scene 1, Oregon County. Scene 1, Oregon County. This is a much more comprehensive ask. We want it all from yesterday. And magic. Magic is my favorite one. So we're trying to work with you and do a lot of magic so we can get it all from yesterday. And I think I'm not sharing my screen yet, so I have slides. And I think I'm sharing slides now. So again, someone say no if you can't see slides. All right. So this is the team. This is our data team working on deflection data. It really takes a village. Inga and Erica and Eliza, I think many of you who have been planning or are starting to implement deflection programs have had a lot of communication with these folks. We are building the online database, which is mandated by the state. And we're doing a lot of in-depth conversations and qualitative data collection to really understand what success means in each county, because we know that none of these models match each other. We have kind of a standardized outcome, and Kelly mentioned this, is how many people who are offered deflection, accepted deflection, and completed deflection. And we know also that even completing deflection, it's going to be hard to standardize the definition. So we added on storytelling as part of our data collection. And just like we did with impacts, we want to present those stories to the GRC as much as we present those numbers. So what did we do? We started out with a planning grant that was administered by the Criminal Justice Commission, and that wrapped up at the end of August. During that time, we reviewed the data collection plan with our OHSU Ethics Board and had a determination of non-research because this data collection is part of a mandated program assessment. We had lots of planning meetings with national experts in deflection to really learn the lay of the land. And we're going to be contracting with George Mason University, which has a large criminal justice research center. The environmental scan of Oregon deflection models, I mean, that's like a close review of all these applications. And again, really in-depth conversations with more than half of the funded sites. You've all heard of the deflection data tracking system. We'll do a quick preview. I'm not going to display the data tracking system because we are still updating it in real time after getting feedback from sites who have graciously agreed to test the system. And it's getting shorter every day. And we submitted a summary report with all of the details of what we did and what we found to CJC. That's in draft form and being reviewed. So now our charge between September and June is to create a behavioral health deflection best practices report. So that is going to be a combination of what's happening in states and counties outside of Oregon, the research that has started to demonstrate best practices as the field develops known evidence-based practices for deflection and a variety of models. And then we're going to look at what's happening in Oregon and see how those known best practices or emerging best practices from outside the state, how do those work with what Oregon counties are doing? What's relevant? What may not be relevant? And how are Oregon counties innovating and flexing their programs to meet the very unique needs of potential and existing deflection participants? We're going to do data analysis in collaboration with Criminal Justice Commission. As Kelly mentioned, we're collecting identifiable data in REDCap so that participants kind of self-reported or a coordinator reported information can be linked to court data. And then we're going to share everything we learn with the GRC, with local counties, and publish. This is a quick summary, and I'm staring at the clock to also make sure that we have time for questions. It took a lot of work very quickly with a lot of people to build this new database in REDCap. We used the same development approach that we used to build a database used by 15 counties and tribes for impacts. They are now in their second year of data collection. We've learned a lot from that experience. One of the things we've learned a lot of is no matter what we really want to know, we have to keep the data collection really short and sweet. And we have to understand every program and changes in programs and be able to make little tweaks as we go. And that's part of the reason why we are going to be in constant contact with the counties who are using the database and incorporating their feedback as much as we can in real time. We can't change the whole thing once a week. But we've started piloting, as you know. We gave some forms for sites that have already started deflecting to track on. And then we're going live in October. And I hope Erica, who is on this call, doesn't get upset with me saying that. But the plan is to go live in October. These are things we have done already. So we've done qualitative interviews with 11 funded behavioral health deflection grantees, and those Eliza Hadeland, who is also on the line, and Inga Simpson, and Erica participated in. And Erica has been hard at work having data planning meetings also with as many funded sites as can fit them in, and that has been tremendously helpful. And we would have no database if we hadn't had really extensive conversations with each site. This is a quick preview of the data dashboard that folks who are entering client information will see. Erica has already run multiple online trainings, and training and retraining and training new staff is going to be a really important part of our role as we support sites to enter their data. So the client forms, and these are all pretty quick, we hope, start with participant identification. And so we're entering data really for every human who is referred for consideration for deflection. So we're not starting once someone has been identified as eligible for deflection. We really want to also capture information on folks who, for example, are officer referred, but then may be deemed ineligible for deflection. And we want to look at differences between those folks, demographic differences especially, but also differences in, for example, employment, housing status. So more will be revealed on that. And then we have the opportunity to enter information for every single deflection event as a separate event, right? So there is a first point of contact. There's information about whether they're eligible or not, information about the deflection plan, information about assessments, whether they were assessed for need for behavioral health services, what services were folks referred to, and whether or not the deflection program indicates that they have completed deflection, and then some details on what happens after they complete or after they do not complete. This is left over from our beta testing, so no one's actually taking a test at the end of data entry, so you can just ignore this one. So this looks like a lot of forms. A lot of the information is only relevant to a particular person. So lots of skip patterns. When we beta tested this and filled out, for example, participant identification, demographics, first point of contact, we're hoping that can be done in 5 or 10 minutes per person. But we will again keep in constant contact with the sites and find out how much time this really does take in reality. So timeline, temporary forms, some of you have seen them, were distributed on September 1st. Beta testing happened through last week, and I imagine it is still happening informally. The team has been doing data trainings, virtual trainings, all of which are recorded, all the way through till September 30th. We're building a user manual, which will be released once the database is final, and going live in early October. And then our primary job, in addition to figuring out what best practices are and writing about them, is ongoing hand-holding, very close technical support so that data can be entered in a way that is reasonably reliable. There's also opportunities for sites to go back and make changes to records that have been entered. So it looks like there's just 3 minutes left for questions, but happy to try and answer any that you may have, and I'm going to stop sharing.
Do we have hard stop to be out of here too?
I don't believe so, Miranda. You.
Because we started a few minutes late, so I think we can take a few extra minutes here for Q and A. Thank you very much, Dr. Waddell and Dr. Hoover. The technical assistance that's been provided at the county level, from everything that I've seen and heard has been excellent. The work that you're doing with RedCap, Dr. Waddell, having sat in on a few meetings, I recognize the enormity and complexity of the task in front of you. So appreciate that you're actually, really close to hitting the button on this and going live. I do have questions about feedback, and I know that counties can't extrapolate data or run reports in RedCap, but it sounds like you're gonna have regular contact with them, and then I heard you say be giving regular reports to the grant review committee. So I'm curious what that's gonna look like. Because I know that counties are gonna be hungry to see kind of at, the 3-6 month juncture, what the overall demographics and numbers look like in their programs.
So thank you for asking that. Our goal is to disseminate as frequently as we can while making sure we don't disseminate data that's going to change in 2 weeks. We need to have some time, of course, to run through checks and make sure sites are comfortable with the data they have entered and the completion and quality of that data. We have talked with CJC executive staff about the possibility and the desire to come up with a reporting template that would be distributed at regular intervals, whether that the time interval is something I think to be determined by executive staff and the GRC, and all of that will be revealed. But you're right, unfortunately, because of the security regulations, we can't have users, OHSU, RedCap, czars will not allow us to give sites access to exporting data. But we do want to create opportunities for sites to use these data to understand, in particular, the volume of folks who are coming in. So that is not probably a very satisfying answer to your question, but I hope it helps a little bit.
It does. Thank you.
Yep.
Other folks have questions.
Chair?
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you both doctors. This is really the deepest dig that I've had with regard to this work and effort, and that's huge. And I just want to say to Dr. Hoover, it's tremendous that you're providing that training to law enforcement and partners. I think Kelly, officer with CJC, mentioned earlier that it's not training new, it's actually training officers that have just become new officers and never had the opportunity to deal with the criminalization of possession. So Dr. Waddell, quick question for you. I'm just kind of curious, and I know all the counties have different models and different players. But I'm kind of curious as to who typically you're envisioning will be entering this data. Is it treatment provider?
That question? Yeah, I didn't hear quite the end of your question, but what I did hear is who's going to be using this data and who's going to be entering the data. And there's some variation, but Erica, can I punt that question to you because you have been in the weeds with all the sites?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. It's as you said, and I didn't hear the internet froze, so I didn't hear the full question, but it does vary by county. Some people are having their coordinator as the kind of central point where they're collecting all of the data and they're entering it. Some people are having multiple people or giving multiple multiple people access to the database, so their behavioral health providers could enter their data relevant to what they're doing, and maybe law enforcement has someone who's entering that data. So it really just varies by site. So we're working with everyone to see what's going to work best for them. And I hope that answered. I can give you more detail if you need.
No, that's very helpful. You know, just looking at what each county is using the grant funds for, I could see this being a full-time job for somebody, and probably, you know, one of the most important pieces other than the actual quality work we're doing with each individual that's referred. But thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Other questions, comments? Staff have any additional comments about the TA work or the research at this point?
Look at each other with the no.
It's both teams have done an incredible amount of work in a short period of time. And you know, been a frenzy. So have a lot of good things.
Yeah. Well, great. Let me then end this meeting by expressing gratitude to the folks at OHSU, Dr. Hoover, your team, Dr. Waddell, your team, for this work. It's really been quite a process to, as someone said, in record time, launch this program. I don't think we've ever seen anything like that with the CJC, where we've actually gotten money out the door in 60 days and started launching brand new programs all over the state, along with all of the TA that's required, you know, the necessary data collection, standing up those systems. It's been a Herculean effort, and we certainly couldn't do it without your assistance. So thank you very much. Also want to express gratitude to the Siletz Tribe, Commissioner Norton, for welcoming us today, to hearing from your team, which was amazing. The gastronomic delights that we got to. Sorry for all of you online who didn't get to experience the amazing food.
And the fresh produce that those of us who got to go home with.
Indeed. So with that, I think we'll adjourn today's meeting. Thank you all, and we'll see you at the next meeting, if not sooner.
Thank you.